Alright, hey, what's going on, everybody? So, we're back with part 2 for this plenum removal, deletes, do injectors, and reinstall. So, since the ending of the last video, we went ahead and resealed the intake valve covers. They were leaking pretty bad, so we replaced the rubber gasket in that, and then we RTV'd the VTC solenoid in the back. We did not replace the exhaust valve covers because those were done recently and they're not leaking. So we decided just to leave those alone. We have the injectors in. So these are a little bit larger than OEM. I believe they're
550.
They're 550s. So we have the 550 injectors installed. This is on the old style rail, the old style plenum. So we had to get the adapter kit. So we got the adapter kit installed in for these. Lots and lots of silicone spray, putting these in to make sure the O-rings don't pinch. We also replaced the lower O-ring for the fuel rail to the lower intake plenum, along with all the associated O-rings for the injector itself. So now we're working on just wrapping everything up and getting the car back together. We went ahead and replaced all these coil pack plugs because they were all pretty toast. All the connectors on them were pretty toast. We also went ahead and updated all the injector harnesses to the new style. So now I'm currently working on just replacing all the hoses for the PCV system, which we've already done a couple of them. There's one here in the back for the exhaust side that we're going to have to replace. It's going to require me to cut it out because we didn't remove this valve cover. Typically it's a lot easier to do when you remove the valve cover, but we didn't do that. So from there, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and stick the plenum back on and just button it up, and it should be a pretty straightforward process from here. Alright, so in the last video, we ended with doing the deletes on this, so cutting off all the coolant lines and everything. So what we did is we went ahead and we just removed all these nipples for the coolant lines. Those feed the throttle body. You really don't need those and they're prone for leaking, so we went ahead and deleted them. Additionally, there is a vacuum nipple here and here. They go under the throttle bodies. Now, with these, a lot of people just put caps on them. But the problem is with the caps is they end up drying up or they fall off. So what you can do is you can take an M6x1 tap and thread this hole. You have to remove the nipple with a pair of pliers. You twist it out. Then you go ahead and throw a tap in it, and then you can throw the little M6x1 bolts in it, blue RTV. You'll never have to worry about replacing those ever again. So we did that. We also replaced the PCV valves, and that's about it. So this plenum is all set, ready to go back onto the car, which we're about to do right now. So I already have my gasket in place for the upper to lower intake plenum, and you want to very carefully place this on here. Without getting all the wiring in the way. Now that our wiring's out of the way, I'll just line it up, gently set it in, and then just make sure everything's out from under it. We got the cruise control cable stuck under it right now. Move that out of the way. And then while you're doing this, you also want to make sure that these PCV hoses, there's one on each side, that they line up with your PCV valves. So once I get this all secure, we'll come back and show you what's next.
All right, so the intake's all bolted up. Spencer's bolted everything up onto the intake as far as the intake manifold itself, clipped in the fuel injector harness, and looks like the coil pack harnesses are all plugged in except for
Most
one.
of them. Yep, those two are over here. Additionally, if you guys are doing the new style injector upgrade, these injectors, the pigtail for it will not clear it. So if we take a view from the side here over by the oil cap, you can kind of see we had to shave down right here to get it to clear. If you don't do that, you will never be able to get that pigtail in. And if you plug it in before you install the plenum, you'll never be able to get it out without removing the plenum. So just take a little grinder, shave off just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with it, and then that'll clear very nicely. So we're going ahead and reinstalling just basically all the entire engine harness on it. Making sure that we do the TPS, the the coil packs, the injector wires. We're also doing the air regulator. There's two on the other control valve. Those are right here, so we got to install those. Don't forget your VTC solenoids, your knock sensor, and for some of you guys, for your Cali guys mostly, or your later Model Zs, there's also an EGR temp sensor. If you deleted your EGR, you're going to need one of those little bypass plugs. This one, because it's an early model, it's a 90, and it's not a Cali spec car, we don't have to worry about that EGR temp sensor. Alright, so we got the plenum secure now. We got the balance tube on. We got all the wiring harnesses plugged into their appropriate places. We have the idle air control valve system all routed up, and we have the PCVs hooked up on the side. Already have the recirc valves routed in on the corners. Here's the other one. We just got to plug it in right here. And actually, sorry, right down there on the side. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and do the fuel system. So we're going to install our fuel pressure regulator and fuel dampener. So here's one of them. The other one's in that box. And good trick for this, a little bit of silicone. And then we will just slide, in theory, just slide right on. Like so. You want to make sure that your fuel lines are nice and seated. We're using 5/16 fuel hose that's rated for fuel injector motors. You're also going to have your vacuum line for both your fuel pressure regulator and fuel dampener. One's going to attach to the balance tube here, and then the other one is on the hard line that runs across the top that will actually attach to the other one over here. Alright, so now that we get the plenum all hooked up, we're going to go ahead and start installing the fuel lines and the fuel system. We got the balance tube back on as well. All the plugs are in their associated places. We have the PCV system routed properly. We have the air control valve system in completely. We have our recircs hooked back up here and here. I already installed the dampener on the one side. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the fuel pressure regulator on the other side. And yeah, that's about it. And then we'll check back in a little bit once the fuel system's all plugged in.
Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm reinstalling the computer. We had it set out to Z1 Motorsports to have the ECU upgraded to accept the 550cc fuel injectors. So now I'm installing it. So the computer sits underneath the passenger side of the vehicle under the floorboards. You can see it's also next to the transmission control module. And it sits underneath this piece of plywood. It's actually a stock piece. So the bracket's all bolted up. Now I'm going to reinstall the plywood over it. Let's just mounts up like so. Get this under the carpet and we'll be done.
Alright, so we went ahead and buttoned the rest of it up. We got all the fuel lines in, we got the feed and return lines in, everything's clamped down. So we're actually ready to start this thing up. What we're doing is just double checking, make sure everything's hooked up. So you obviously want to make sure that all your harnesses are plugged in, your fuel lines are in and everything is tight, all your vacuum lines are routed correctly, and just make sure that everything's put together. So we actually, this is a twin turbo model. This is actually the sensor that sends the boost pressure to the gauge inside the car. Typically this hose runs all the way to the other side to the plenum right here, which leaves a big ugly hose across the back. We decided gonna get rid of that, so we just shortened it, and I just put a little T on here, just teed it in. All it has to do is just read vacuum pressure off the intake plenum, so it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Yeah, and you're just double checking, make sure everything is hooked up properly. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to do a fuel pressure test. So we're going to go ahead and turn the key, let the fuel pump prime, make sure that we don't see any leaking hoses. I'm going to stand by with the size 2 Phillips. And then if that's all good, then we're going to crank it over and she should start.
Hopefully this battery didn't die. If I can squeeze my ass.
You want to move it? Back. Over back.
Forward a little bit. Actually, I don't need to be in the car. I can do it from home.
Yeah, make sure it's in park, obviously. So don't start it, just prime the fuel pump. And then cycle the key again, one more time.
He's off.
On again. Alright, go ahead.
Off or?
Start it. Yeah. Yeah. One more. Perfect.
Yeah. Still alive on here. Let it run or kill it?
I mean, you can do whatever you want. I mean,
Still gonna change the oil in the oil filter.
right here, I don't know this.
It's not smooth. Okay, so I went ahead and changed the oil. I put full synthetic Castrol 530 and changed the oil filter obviously with that. I changed the spark plugs to the NGK iridiums, and I also changed out the fuel filter. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up for the first time since the oil change and tune-up. We fired it up earlier as you saw, but that was still with the old oil, old plugs, and old fuel filter. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime up the fuel system and fire it up. might replace that serpentine belt because it's loud as hell. But that's it. Done.